the war on Ukraine by Russia. All right. What's your take on it? Maybe I can ask Pranav to do that. Pranav, just tell me what's your take.
Sir, why are they fighting in the first place?
That's what I want to ask you. Did you read up or did you research? Were you curious?
Sir, I think it is because Russia wanted to become the most powerful country again.
No, I think they want to bring back USSR.
Good. Where did you get these ideas from? I mean, who was the boy who just
join in NATO? That
okay.
Army,
tell me that.
A group of countries related to army. So Russia does not like that. So they started war.
All right. I think, see, most of you are on to the right track. Rishikesh, where did you get your ideas from?
I read
where did you get this?
One magazine.
Which one?
GK and Current Affairs, Madhuru.
Oh, great. That's good.
I read from the India Today.
Okay, that's also great. Anyone do it from internet? Did anyone search for it in the internet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Angel, tell me, where all did you go? I mean, how would you go about? Suppose you are given a school assignment. All right, 2,000 words you have to say on this problem. How would you go about it?
The main reason is apart from Venezuela, Russia is having the greatest oil reserves, like the second largest in the world. So, and the world economy is like of today's world, the current world, they are actually running. The fuel prices are like we import them from Russia, most of the countries. So
a lot of countries do export from Russia. Yeah, fine.
And we were giving opportunities, like we were the ones who are financing the war. So Russia, like Mr. Putin, he came to power like as the president of Russia by stating that he wanted to join the USSR and bring back the good old days, the glory of the Russian Empire, which existed at the time of the Tsar and all. So, and the people accepted his idea. So all this war was actually a result of that, because they really wanted to get back Ukraine, and Ukraine was not part of the NATO. So they were actually going to give this application to be accepted into the NATO. So that is the main reason. So if they get into the NATO, they will get support from the other European countries in terms of armed forces. So in order to prevent that, he wanted them not to join the NATO, so that he could conquer them, like get back the old USSR. He was not intending for a war, but he wanted to make peace. But instead of choosing the soft power method, he chose a hard power.
Very good, very excellent analysis. I mean, I would say that is a beautiful analysis. So you brought forward a lot of points. What are the points you brought forward? That inherent personality and power position of Putin, Vladimir Putin, isn't it? That is one important thing which you brought forward, which I agree with you totally. Because he came, he's a nationalist authoritarian president. Do you think he's a democratic guy? But there are elections in Russia.
No, sir. He's even though there are elections, even though it's clearly a democracy, there is Russia for a very long period of time. It was under czars and under the monarchy. So,
but that was long time ago.
And this is like Russia was born quite recently, after the breakdown of USSR in the late 90s.
Yes.
So, and for a very long period of time, he was been the president, and the people really liked him. So he had that person. There was like a lot of dictatorships. Like whatever he says goes. And moreover, it's not a prime minister sort of relationship that we have like in India.
Okay. So you are saying is that it's a subverted kind of democracy. Even though there is on paper a democracy, it doesn't really is, isn't it? Okay, so he's another. What you are saying is that he's an authoritarian president who is little bit drunk on his nationalist ideals that he will bring back the USSR, and he establishes to be a regional power in the place. So he sees the entire Western, so-called Western alliance of NATO and USA as his main impediment, isn't it, for his geopolitical? That's what you mean, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you are saying is that Ukraine wanted to possibly wanted to join NATO, so he was afraid that NATO will, bring the influence close to home. So he wanted to have a preemptive strike. Plus, he wanted to expand his so-called empire and establish an old USSR-like empire. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Now, I would largely agree with that point of view, even though, okay, you can maybe blame the USA also and the NATO also for some things, some historical things. But I like the way you went about it. First, you had a historical idea of it. See, anything which happens today, anything, any issue, any finding, any truth, any scientific fact, or a complex truth does not happen in a vacuum. So it has a long history behind it, and there are various factors, isn't it? So I like the way you went about it in a historical manner. Now, a little bit more complex question. I mean, maybe somebody else can answer. Anybody else? Rishikesh or Labano, Manomi, Mekha, any one of them? Whose side are you on? Are you on Ukraine side or are you on Putin's side?
I think I will be with Ukraine.
Okay, what are your reasons for that?
Because it's their choice if they need to join where Russia do not need to influence that.
Yeah, true. I mean, that is a good point of view, I would say, because now there is with a lot of, I mean, you know that past years were filled with warfare, isn't it? And the present time, there is a global consensus that independent states, just because they are smaller or slightly weaker than you will not, another country will not just come and occupy it and keep it under their control, isn't it? So in one way, USSR has broken that sort of sanctified ideal or a unwritten rule in today's world. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Pranav. Yeah.
Sir, I think they're not a part of UN anymore, right?
They are, no? They are.
Sir, I thought the UN nations removed them because they broke a law.
No, who? Russia? No,
Yeah.
Russia is no, Russia is definitely part of the United Nations for the time being. Okay. Now, okay, and I liked your, I mean, responses. No, maybe all of you little bit understood how we would analyze a complex issue. I like the way most of you went about it. But the world is a very complex place. The first impediment to finding out the truth is maybe you yourself. Okay, so I'll just say a little bit about biases. There are how your mind works in analyzing complex information, and then maybe some biases. There are some biases. What are biases?
We favor a particular side.
Yeah, you favor not a particular side. You see, there are ways in which your mind can go wrong, be less objective. Okay, so there are certain ways in which our mind can go wrong. So in this maybe this session I'll go into that, and the next session maybe we'll go into how to get digital information from authentic information online and from other places, maybe media, and what are the biases in each, and how to find the authentic information, and how to analyze the information the next one. So this time maybe I will stick with the biases. This is Descartes. He said, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But the actual thing is, I doubt, therefore I think. And I think, therefore I am. So it is like, you know, you should doubt almost everything which is told to you, unfortunately. You should be slightly skeptical, especially if it comes through WhatsApp or Facebook or some online source, random source which you just open. Okay, you click Ukraine-Russia war or Ukraine-Russia issue, and then a lot of things crops up. So they may be motivated. There may be a lot of things which are, untruths. There may be misinformation and disinformation, and you should doubt it if you really want authentic information. But thing is there a truth out there? We know that, see, it's a consensus thing. Okay, some truths are there, so you put them as objective truths. Okay, the theory of gravity, say, or you can see the weather is very bad, so these are objective truths. But there are some subjective truths which are real to me. For example, I may be sad with one thing, but that same thing may make another person actually happy. But there are some intersubjective truths, see, like democracy, like some value systems which are intersubjective, or you can say economics, Indian economic scenario, or the world economy. You say you can't study it like an objective thing. So that's also a truth thing, really speaking. So the complex truths have multiple sides and nuances, and there are different interpretations. Okay, with some inevitable amount of subjectivity. Subjectivity means one's viewpoint will be there on most of these complex truths, like our thing which we discussed, like that issue with Russia and Ukraine. I hope you understood and you are not doing like that. What all this is? Maybe I'll try to get a truthful thinking. What exactly are we looking at? We want to get accurate information, and we want to understand the complexity a bit. Okay, and be aware of the ambiguities. What are ambiguities? Ambiguities are things which you don't really know. Okay, it may be this way or that way, but you realize that. Okay, or some things may be weighted against this side, so more probability is towards that, like that. And you want to understand that argument, what that argument is and why it is so, and get the emotions of these people who say all this. Okay, for example, in this particular controversial issue, I'm not controversial, the complex geopolitical issue which I told you, some people may actually support Putin. Some people may actually support USA very much without looking at anything else. But there may be certain emotional agendas, emotional reasons, and they may have some agendas. So you need to identify the agendas of other people. So whenever you hear information written down or told to you, you should have some idea of, okay, why they are saying it. Are they just providing you with objective information? Or are they coloring it with their own agendas, which may be subconscious? They may not be doing it consciously. Then grading certainties. Okay, some things are more certain than others. That's one thing which you need to know. For example, some ideas in physics or chemistry are very certain. Okay, some things in biology may be less certain. Some things in medicine or psychology may be actually even lesser. Something in prehistory may be even less certain. Okay, so you should have an idea of, and you should be able to grade them. These are what we mean by truthful thinking. Because I hate this critical thinking, that word, because it looks like as if you are just looking to criticize something. It's not really like criticizing something. Okay, it is like thinking how to get at the truth. This is a very interesting. A girl is walking down the road with a doctor, while the girl is the doctor's daughter. The doctor is not the girl's father. Then who is the doctor? Tell me, somebody, immediately.
Mother.
Yeah, okay, good. this actually was, it's an old question. This I have seen it around 25 or 30 years back, I remember. So that time it was even more mystifying, suddenly you will be thrown. But here also I would bet that many people are thrown, were thrown for some time. The reason is that whenever we are confronted with a problem, or whenever we are confronted with um, something to think about, we just jump into conclusions. That is what I want to know. This I'll skip this, or I mean, will maybe some flowers wilt quickly. Roses are flowers. Some roses wilt quickly. True or false? True or false?
True.
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 False.
Is it true? I
Maybe,
think
maybe false.
I think it is not. Yeah, it is. I think it is not necessarily true. Okay, it's not necessarily true, because some flowers will quickly, and roses are flowers. These are true, but some roses will quickly doesn't follow from that two statements, isn't it? Because all the roses may be wilting very late. Okay, so but what makes you jump into these kind of conclusions is because you have your mind is like a digital camera, and it has got an automatic mode and a manual mode. Okay, and you are always in your automatic mode. That's what you should understand. And most of your decisions and your biases and how you think are based on emotions, basically. And intelligence and rationality are two different things. You may be very intelligent, you may crack all the exams, you may crack the entrance exams, but intelligence and rationality, psychologists have found out, are slightly different from each other. So some people are more rational than others. Okay, some very intelligent people jump to conclusions very quickly on many issues, and they get into trouble. Okay, then they may not think through most situations. So you should understand that intelligence and rationality are two different things. I'll talk to you about just a little bit about self-serving. Yeah, tell me.
I have a question. What is after primacy?
Affect primacy. Affect means emotion. Okay, it's another word for emotion. Primacy means, okay, it's the most important thing. Affect primacy. Good thing that you asked me this question. This is what I was trying to tell you in that first slide. What is critical thinking? I was just Googling it, and this came to my notice. Purposeful self-regulatory judgment, which results in the interpretation, analysis, evaluation, inference, as well as explanation of the evidential, conceptual, methodological, criteriological, or contextual consideration upon which that judgment is based. Did you understand anything? See, the moment I see something like this, I just skip it. Okay, if it's really important, I try to just look. There may be only very few points in. Yeah, tell me.
I have a question. If we can crack exams, does that mean we are more intelligent than average?
Okay. That see, I just said that I was thinking somebody might question me this thing, because cracking an exam depends a lot on your innate ability and the way you have trained amount of luck, isn't it? So it's a combination of things. So it's just a method of telling, that's all.
Some of them actually crack exams by hacking things, so we can't be sure.
Yeah, of course, I agree. But whatever said and done, in some exams, like where you have a common established background, like IIT exam or medical entrance or engineering entrance or GMAT and all that, you have some amount of innate ability, as well as your hard work, as well as the way you train for it. So these can be gamed also in one way. It is not you only your this thing. the amount of coaching you specifically get for that, and exam is also important. So you are right. You just cannot
So
judge
we can't be
anybody
sure,
depending. Yeah, you can
even
just
if we
not
get
judge.
high marks.
Yeah, you can't be sure of what. Sure of what? Sure of your innate ability or the way you have worked hard.
Yes, we can't be sure that we are very intelligent
No, we can't be
or
sure they are very
intelligent
good.
than average.
Or can you be sure somebody has cracked it? Can you be sure that he has worked hard for it?
He could copy.
Yes, that's sure, because to
No,
crack
no,
the
no.
exam,
That
we
is
have
a
to work
different.
hard.
Yeah, that's a different issue. But it depends. You may not have worked. Some may not have worked that hard too, isn't it? Good. This discussion is good because this is a complex issue. So let me see how you can analyze that. How would you say how much contributes to each? Suppose it is a IIT or a GE, General Engineering Entrance Exam. What are the things which contribute to it? Does innate ability contribute it to a little bit?
A bit.
How many of you
Yes,
think
I
so?
think little bit, yes.
10%.
Angel, what did you say?
Very
Didn't get
little,
you.
because I feel if you're hardworking and you do a lot of practice, that would also do.
Okay. I mean, you mean to say if your innate ability is a little bit lower, you may have to work harder. Is that what Pranav meant?
Yeah.
Okay. Angel, what would you say?
So that would be just 10%. The other 10%
Okay.
would be luck. Then the rest 80 it would be hard work.
Okay. You are trying to quantify it. Okay. Is there any basis for your quantification?
Yes, sir. Because I had to go through it.
No, I don't think you have any basis for your quantification. That is something which you have just, your opinion or your thinking or your feeling about it. You are just given a percentage like that, no? Isn't it?
No, so it's like a lot of, when we read a lot of histories of different people who have become successful,
Okay.
either the scientists.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I'm not questioning your judgment, but your quantification by percent wise is a little dicey, don't you think? How did you do that?
So, even the great scientist Albert Einstein once said that a genius is just 1%, like 1%,
True.
and the rest is hard work.
Yeah, true. But even though Einstein is a big scientist, this particular statement, do you think this is a scientific statement from him or just a emotional or feeling opinion from him?
So it's not a scientific statement.
Yes, that is critical thinking. That is truthful thinking. Okay, that is truthful thinking, I would say. So whenever you hear percentages like that, you should think, okay, is it a quantified thing or is that percentage calculable? Can you really calculate? Can you design a study in which you can really measure each and maybe say how many percentage of contribution is there? Would you say is such a study possible? There may be many things contributing to a person cracking an exam, an entrance exam. On a particular exam, is there a way of designing a study in which you can study all the possible um, contributing factors like hard work, like entrance coaching center, which center they go to, and how many hours of coaching do they get? And then what are their innate ability in terms of performance in an intelligence test? And then luck. Can you design a study and say how much is being contributed by each? Is it possible even?
Sir, I actually have a doubt. Can we measure our intelligence?
I mean, yes.
Like,
in a way.
is it like IQ test?
Yes, yeah, it's like IQ test.
But that is like most of the, I think it's like puzzles and vocabulary. But that doesn't mean you're very intelligent.
No,
Means
see,
you have vocabulary.
Yeah. The thing is, see, intelligence is a construct which is studied by psychologists and other people, child development specialists and other people. So it has got some value. Okay, just understand that. So you have Gardner's idea of multiple intelligence, where you say you have spatial intelligence, natural intelligence, musical intelligence. But there are people who are saying that that cannot be measured properly. So whenever you say intelligence, there is a construct which can be measured, but you are just for the time being defining it as something measured by an IQ test. Okay. So these are ways to study very complex truths, like your mental ability, for example. So it cannot be each person is unique, and it is very difficult to study it. But this is one way of studying it. That's all. That's all. As you said, see, you will have to when you design a study. I asked you a question: is it possible to design a study? Actually, it is possible to design a study, but for that you will have to quantify, or they call it operationalization of concepts. So you'll have to say exactly how you will measure intelligence. Then you'll have to say, okay, I'll measure it by IQ score, because whatever you said, okay, it cannot be exactly measured by IQ score. I agree, but you should have something to measure it by, and the IQ is a objective way of measuring it to some extent. Some extent, as you said, it is not just puzzles and all that. There are multiple subcategories in which they measure it. Every IQ test will have it, and it gives an overall idea of little bit about a person's innate some abilities, not all, only that bookish whatever is being measured. Okay, and then you can operationalize. Can you study? Then you like to say hard work. How will you define hard work? Okay, then you say, okay, I will define hard work by the hours put in every day. Okay, or then I'll define coaching centers, time put in coaching centers as hours put in a particular coaching center by a student per day or per week, like that. So you will have to quantify, and then you will have to design a study in which you follow 1,000 students and measure all these attributes, and then find out how many people maybe cracks that exam, and then maybe see how much is correlated. These are called correlations. How much is correlated with, say, IQ score? How much is correlated with hard work? How much is correlated with both? How they influence each other? There can be, in theory, be studied. Okay, that's what I just want this an aside. Okay, first we'll go to the self-serving biases. We all have bias. I told you, bias is something which of a problem with our mind in perceiving truth. And I'll just put out, there are a lot of self-serving biases. I'll just tell you one most important fundamental attribution error. That is a thing which I want to tell you. Only one. Okay, take home message is only one. You have a big bias in you, which will tell you always that I am not the problem, they are the problem. So you will refrain from assigning any blame on yourself most of the time. For example, if you go late to a meeting, or you are late for class, you will always be thinking, okay, I woke up late, then there was I went out and I didn't get the bus, or the vehicle didn't come, there was a lot of traffic on the road and I couldn't get it here. So you'll blame the external world. All right. On the other hand, you are in class and somebody else comes in late. What would you think? You might think, oh, this fellow is always like that. This girl is always like that. So you may attribute, whenever you see, you may attribute to yourself external things as the reason for your problem. On the other hand, somebody else's problem, you will attribute something inherent to them. Okay, so if you get low marks for one of your exam, it is likely that you attribute other things, like the teacher did not give me marks, just questions were very difficult, but my luck was out this time. On the other hand, if your friend or a brother did not get that much mark, what would you think? He did not study well, or he's not up to it. So you have a thinking like that. So this goes in many other ways. If somebody gets angry with you, you may think that it is their problem, not your problem. I'm not saying always you should think it's all your problem, because that can happen with people who are low self-esteem. So you should not always think like that. If you always think like that also and getting depressed, that's a different type of problem. But what I am not saying about that now. What I'm saying is that which most people have, one of the biases is this one, fundamental attribution error. Can you think about any more examples of fundamental attribution error? Anybody? Or have you experienced it? Or do you think that is it's true? Have you noticed it in yourself?
So the one
Okay.
which I was planning to say only, I thought I would say something like that, but it's there's almost same thing. Which
Okay, fine. Another thing you have to understand is that suppose there is your mind works in such a way that you have a confirmation bias. മലയാളത്തിൽ അത് തെളിവ് പെറുക്കിത്തരം എന്ന് പറയാം. അതായത് നമുക്ക് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു കാര്യത്തിനെ പറ്റി അറിയണമെങ്കിൽ നമ്മളൊരു കൺക്ലൂഷൻ ആദ്യമേ ഉണ്ടാക്കിയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ അതിന്റെ തെളിവ് പെറുക്കിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കും. അതാണ്. ഉദാഹരണത്തിന്, ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ, ഇൻ ദാറ്റ് കോംപ്ലക്സ് argument which complex geopolitical issue which we talked about, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Suppose you are on the side of Putin. You want to support Putin. Okay. Then what you might always do is search the web or other articles for information or articles which supports Putin. You will never read articles which go against Putin, against Russia. That is തെളിവ് പെറുക്കിത്തരം. You will always want to confirm your biases, what I believe in.
same thing will apply to people who agree with Ukraine. No?
I didn't
Like
get you.
suppose, like sir, I'm always thinking about Ukraine side. Never thought about Russia. Never searched.
Okay, but then you would be always you have a tendency to pick articles or opinions or stuff which sides with Ukraine. All right, so you should probably be willing to look at the other side. So how will you overcome this confirmation bias? By being aware of it, and whenever there is an issue, and you should examine yourself and try to read things contrary to it also. Then you will understand which side the truth actually lies. Because there is another bias called availability error within you. Because you have only this much of idea. Suppose there are 100 points to be known about a thing, but you know only 5. You will construct a worldview and opinion with only these 5. Okay. That is what is known as availability error. So there may be things which you don't know, and you should be aware of how much you know. If it is too less, very less, a very few points also, you will form an opinion based on that. That is how your mind works. But you should be willing to, then once your opinion is formed, you will try to confirm by തെളിവ് പെറുക്കിത്തരം. All right. That is how your mind works. You should be aware of it and try to get as much information as possible about a complex problem, and look at your own confirmation bias and just try to get the opposite side as well. Okay. Then, okay, there are belief system biases, which may be religious or ideological. Some people may be progressive. You have heard of leftists. Some people may be more conservative. Some people may be very deep religious believers. Some people may be actually atheist, very strongly atheists, and means does not believe in religion or God, that may have their own biases. They may have their own biases. Okay. There are some people have a tendency to think in numbers. Most of us do not think in numbers. So in most of the truths, you need to know a little bit about numbers, a little bit about statistics, how to read numbers and how to read statistics. Then only you will have an idea of what the truth is. Then the most important bias is a group identity bias. I mean, if you are part of a group, it may be a religious group, it may be a nation, it may be a school even, it may be a school, or it may be your own friends. Then you may identify with them and think whatever they are saying only is the truth, and their opinion is your opinion. This is one very, very important bias. Can anyone tell me an example that you have come across about group identity bias?
I'm not sure, but I think it is that. Like once in my school, we had something like a treasure hunt kind of things where we played many games. It was a group activity in which we had sticks, like all number sticks. So the teacher will tell, blow the whistle, and we have to leave the stick and hold the next stick. If the stick falls, the person who was supposed to catch it is out.
All right.
But people only thought about themselves and forgot that it was a group activity, and then we finally lost.
All right. It's a nice story, but it's not exactly a group bias. But anybody else?
So then what will it come with?
So does it mean like if one person is telling something and believing what that person is telling, is it like that?
Yeah. If one person means a friend, do you mean a friend?
Yes, maybe a friend or someone. I'm not sure.
No,
Can be.
That depends. No, that is very important. If it is your real, tell me, Prana.
Sir, I just remember one more thing. Like a few days ago, we had one group activity about doing chart. Like we had to draw the map and all about of the world. So one of the friend was good in art, and he told I'll draw everything, and everybody supported that rather than sharing.
Maybe. See, the thing is, what you said is correct, and what the previous person said is very important. Who said is also important. If it is your close friend, it is likely that you will share that opinion with him. Or if you have a group of 5-6 friends and you form an opinion on something, and you all believe in something, it is very, very likely that you will also believe that same viewpoint.
Yes.
This is a group identity bias. This can happen. For example, just think about your house. There may be houses in your school, no? So your house will have an identity, isn't it? You may sometimes be bitching about other houses, saying that this house is bad, our house is good, and all that. So you should be aware that ultimately this can lead to a sort of bias because you may not be right. Okay. So this is a very, very famous cartoon. Okay, our blessed homeland, their barbarous wastes, our glorious leader. Okay, I mean, you can read it. It's so self-explanatory that this bias is, but it's very important to understand that this bias is ubiquitous. Means it's like so human that we do not even think about it. So I am not saying we should not be proud of our country or should not be proud of our system, family, or ethnicity. You can be. You be very proud of it. You be very proud of that peculiarities. But just think that this particular bias may cause you to hate other people without any reason. That's the most important lesson which you need to take away from this class. If at least this only one thing you take away, I will be happy. And that may not be true. Most of the time, it will not be true. You have to know the other people's perspective. That is the most important. It is not like saying that you should not be proud of anything which is yours, any group identity. But you have to think that the other people also will be proud of theirs, and they will have their own viewpoint. No stereotyping. Stereotyping is a very important bias. Suppose you have somebody foreigner who does not speak Malayalam, or who is from, say, Bihar. You have a friend, a person in the room, in the school, your friend, I mean your classmate. There is a possibility that you'll typecast him. Okay. Oh, he's from that community, or he's from that place. All people from Bihar are like this. It isn't so. If you take 10 people from Bihar, there will be 10 individual people with individual peculiarities, just like 10 people from Kerala, or from our place, or from whatever place you are from. Or it depends on not only about place from which they come. It can be the color of their skin, it can be their facial peculiarities, it may be how attractive they are or unattractive they seem, I mean from another perspective, things like that. A lot of things. Or suppose they have some special needs, you may typecast of, okay, all these type of people are like this, but that will not be true. It's a type of bias. It's a type of automatic need for our minds to categorize things into clear-cut categories. So it's an automatic thing in our minds. So okay, we'll say, okay, people with dark skin are like this, or short people are like this, athletic people always think like this, very academic or very studious people are all like that. Things like that. They may be totally untrue. So this is another bias which you have to be very careful about.
Very correct, sir.
These biases in others, you have to recognize in other people also. Authors, speakers, other people, whoever talks to you, even your teachers, your friends, even your parents and family, everybody will have these biases. So you should not judge them for that, but you just realize that people have them and try to recognize it.
Excuse me, sir. What is the difference between the drawing? Like one is scribbled and one's circle.
Oh, it's just a cartoon. It's just a cartoon. Showing how people think about each other and all that. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'll stop here this particular presentation, and the rest, how to fish for information, we'll leave to the next class. All right. We'll go to the questions now. Questions or opinion or whatever. Anybody, anything to say?
So one question I had, sir, in the course it was written like biases and mental blocks. So like, what are mental blocks?
Mental blocks, yeah. He meant biases only. Basically, we meant all these things. I told you, there are a lot of mental blocks like this. But we have touched on the most important things, like these biases, this group identity bias,
Yes.
confirmation bias, how you may jump into conclusion depending on your emotion. All these are our mental blocks to accessing information, isn't it? These are what we meant. Anybody else?
Okay, sir.
Angel, anything to say?
No, sir. So sometimes it's very difficult. Sir, it's like it's very difficult to get rid of the group biases in you sometimes.
That's what you feel, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any examples from your own life or whatever you remember? Any group bias?
Yes, sir. It was concerning like the recent moment which took place in Ernakulam like a year ago or something. Like break the.
Okay.
It was related to the gender equality, which was passed by the court in 2020. So
Okay.
a lot of children these days, they have a broader view, but some others, they have a very conservative view on those things.
Okay.
But both of the sides have the truth. Like the truth is lying in the middle of both of them.
Okay. Many a time, truth is lying in the middle of them. But yeah, but why do you think that group identity influences their thinking?
The reason is probably the belief system in which they are born and brought up, or
Okay,
the fear
okay,
of
fine.
society judging them.
Yeah, understood. Ayati.
Yes, I would like to share a story of mine. So when I was small, in junior, senior KG till second grade, what used to happen is I wasn't talk. I never used to talk to anyone, and people
Okay.
used to make faces at me, and they never used to consider me, especially in group projects or something like that. So
Okay.
I never used to consider my views also. So now
Alright.
when ma'am gives me the initiative of such projects, so I just imagine myself in their position, and I can really experience how that person might be feeling. So I don't repeat the same thing with them. So this is a
Okay.
good thing which happened with me.
Great. That is a good thing to share. Maybe you are meaning to say that previously there was some stereotyping going on based on your introversion, things like that. Is it?
Yes.
Maybe because you did. Okay, fine. I enjoyed this session quite a lot. I'm really gratified to see that most of you have understood the basic things. It's not so difficult, isn't it? It's not so difficult at all to understand how your mind works at a very basic level and what are the mental blocks.
Jimmy,
What are the Sadish?
yeah, I want to tell like three very most common biases which I have come across.
Okay.
One is the people of Northeast, who are the people I think who have come across maximum bias. Because in my tenure,
you mean type of stereotyping?
Stereotyping.
Yeah, true. Even I have. I think. Why do you think they are particularly vulnerable?
I think that's because of two reasons. I think one is because their dressing style is quite different from the dressing style what we have, and their gender relationships are much more warm than ours. So our people, whenever they see that warm relationship and their dressing style, so these two things combined together becomes a new identity. And then people attribute a lot of things to them.
True.
There
is another thing also which we may not like to acknowledge, but they look different. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
They actually look. They are a slightly different race from most other Indians. That immediately makes you stereotype them. See, that is what unless you are particularly aware of that bias and guard yourself against that works, kind of. That is one prime example of how stereotyping works there.
Yes. And then we called by a name. So that name itself is
true.
Yeah, epitome of stereotyping. And second stereotyping I have seen is are girls who wear like bit of a modern dress kind of stuff. So it's in the society, if anything happens, people tell they have somebody who wears that kind of a dress, their character is associated like that.
True. So I do think that even though it's so common and political correctness is, I'm not a big fan of political correctness, which sometimes you can't say anything, you cannot crack a joke, that kind of thing. I'm not for that. But calling Northeast chinky and other things is basically demeaning if you do it to them. Because when you go someplace else and they call you always Mallu, it is sometimes you can accept it because they are your friends. Sometimes it is acceptable, but not always. See, when they attribute something common to all people, okay, you guys are like that, then that immediately becomes a malignant sort of slur, especially a bad thing. Okay, when they say a good thing, you are not that much bothered. So it's nice to know that now, the new generation, a lot of people are aware of these issues and tries to think through them, at least when you ask them. I think the most important problem in our teachers and people who talk to them are they don't listen to them. They listen to the children, and sort of stereotypes in one way. They don't know anything, so we have to tell everything to them.